public in an attempt to make scapegoats of Rawlings and his men.
For the first time in Ghana, a group of junior army officers had attempted to
Country. After 3 months, they handed over to a civilian government under Hilal Liman.
I will set the appropriate examples myself.
B. Parliament dissolved. C.
Error has come into being in this country. Supposed to be 24.
Of the free maternity care for our women.
Late President numerous occasions would jump at
So welcome to United Cadres from TV, the TV channel of the only umbrella body that is legally recognized in Ghana for cadets. And we have here today on the show a veteran who can be called and is a cadet himself, because I knew him when cadets were actively working for this country. It's in the person of the good one and the beloved who has been on the media and the TV screens for many years when the revolution was on. That is Honorable Fritz Baffour. So welcome, Honorable.
Thank you very much.
Today we have here a situation in the country where the product of the revolution in the corporate body of the National Democratic Congress has assumed power, has won a massive victory at the polls. And the victory is so massive that it has been referred to as the People's Revolution. And incidentally, we have circumstances that were very similar to what gave rise to the revolution in the 1981 in the first place. But the social ills, the situation in the economic and political scene that gave rise to the revolution has become worse. So the main point is to examine how the situation which the revolution has sought to correct has rather become worse several decades on. And can you help us understand this?
In 1979, on June 4th, there was an insurrection or mutiny by the Ghana Armed Forces against the ruling Supreme Military Council. And the mutiny was ostensibly to free Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings of blessed memory from prison. And that revolution led to a situation where we called it the era of probity, accountability, and social justice. The AFRC, or the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, which was formed as a result of that mutiny, came into power for a few months because there was a constitutional situation, and they paved way for the Third Republic in October of that year. The People's National Party, the PNP, led by Dr. Liman, became victorious, and they became the party in power in the Third Republic. But they didn't last, because in December 1981, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings led another insurrection, which he called the December 31st Revolution. And he formed the Provisional National Defense Council, which ruled the country from 1981 to 1992, when the exigencies of people's power requested that they wanted another constitutional government. So in 1992, there was an election. Jerry John Rawlings led the National Democratic Congress, which was mostly derived from the PNDC, the Provisional National Defense Council, of which she had ruled in a quasi-military civilian situation. I'm just giving you the background and the chronology. So in 1992, we had the fourth Republican Constitution of Ghana. The first being Kwame Nkrumah's from 1960 to 1966. The second being from 1969 to 1972. The third being from 1979 to 1981 December. So that has been the progression. We've had military insurrections and we've had constitutional dispensations. But ostensibly, all the coups were to remove what they alleged were corruption, mismanagement of our resources, and bad governance. And the reason why we are here talking about this today is that the Fourth Republican Constitution has prevailed for 32, 33 years. And so, and we've had phenomena in that. In 1992, the NDC, National Democratic Congress, led by Flight Lieutenant General John Rawlings, won the elections and came into power in 1993 on January 7th, promoting the principles of accountability, probity, good governance, and social justice. This was a carryover from the PNDC years where he made sure that Ghana had redeemed itself in terms of the economy, in terms of social development and infrastructural development. So they carried on. I think in 1996, there was another election and General Rawlings won the election. And in 2000, the NDC lost power to the New Patriotic Party, which was the main opposition. And I must say, in 1992, the election was 1992, the main opposition parties pulled out because they felt that they couldn't really compete. They didn't have the resources or the funds, and they had other reasons. But in 1996, they took part in the election and they won about 60 seats or more seats out of the 200 in Parliament at the time. In 2000, Ghana made history because that was the first time an opposition party had taken over from a ruling government in the history of Ghana. And President Baffour, who was the leader of the NPP, or the New Patriotic Party, became president. He stayed on for 8 years. But in 2008, after 2 terms, the NPP lost power and another historical event happened. The former ruling party became the ruling party under John Evans Atta Mills, who was the leader of the NDC. It was a very, very tight contest, and the NDC prevailed, but unfortunately, in 2012, Atta Mills, about to lead the party in elections, died. And so we had the vice president taking over as president of the Republic of Ghana, another historic first, because Atta Mills was the first president to die whilst in office. Vice President John Mahama became the president, and in December was the candidate of the NDC for the 2012 elections, which he narrowly won. And from 2012 to 2016, the first year, the NPP took the party to court, took the NDC to court in an election petition. It lasted 8 months and stifled the progress of the NDC and the work that they wanted to do. In 2017, or 2016 elections, the MPP took back the seat. Another historic first was that this was the first time a sitting president had been defeated by the opposition. And Nana Akufo-Addo, Dankwa Akufo-Addo, became the president of the Republic of Ghana, leader of the NPP. And he prevailed until for 2 terms. And in December 2024, the NPP, led by Dr. Mahama Bawumia, lost elections to the NDC, another changeover. So it seemed as if the election cycle for parties to rule was 8 years, despite the fact that the presidency is a 4-term presidency. But the remarkable thing about this particular election was that the results were totally unexpected, because the NPP lost the election and they lost it woefully. The NDC has 183 seats, and I think the NPP has about 88 with 4 independents. So that is the chronology of what has happened so far. As to the question, was the content of the policies of the various parties. The NDC claims or says it is a social democratic party, while the NPP, the New Patriotic Party, believes that it's a property-owning democracy to the right. So NDC is to the left. And they believe that they're the party of the people. And so all their policies inure to the interest of the man and woman on the street, or the common man. While the NPP believes in a drip-down effect, where private enterprise becomes the mover and shaker of the economy, and that when success comes to the various sectors, it drips down or it goes down to the people on the ground. But I must say that for political reasons, the NPP has promoted several initiatives which have been deemed as social democratic or socialist. For instance, they promoted LEAP, which is the livelihood empowerment program for people, like a social welfare state program. They promoted free SHS, which is that secondary schools, senior secondary schools, are free to eligible students. They've also promoted various schemes, but the depth of their policies is what came up for the Ghanaian people. That these policies really reached the people, or were they just policies that were set up to make money for certain individuals in the party? The last 8 years in Ghana, that is from 2017 to 2024, 25, has been a horrendous experience for the Ghanaian people, because the NPP have been subject to so many scandals and strong evidence of corrupt practices and mismanagement. And so they believe that they've done so much for the ordinary persons that they would win the 2024 election. It didn't happen. They lost. And they lost, and for the first time, Ghanaians all over feel to sigh of relief, saying that this is their second independence. And it reflects on the time of 1979, where there was an economic malaise, where prices had gone high. We had foreign exchange problems, where our foreign exchange situation was so bad that we didn't have cover to buy oil or the essentials that pushed the economy. So the same thing has recurred from for some years. It's almost 1979 to now is about 37 years, 47 years, 37 years. So it gives you the whole idea of what we've been going through in the past few years. December 7th, 2024 was a big surprise. And Ghanaians are expecting that the NDC will do what is right by the common man, because the evidence of the victory is in the fact that people felt they were not being treated fairly by the erstwhile government, which was the MPP government. We saw so many things happen. And the president himself at the time, when he was being inaugurated, said that he'd protect the public purse. But that hasn't been what has happened. He hired jets, luxury jets. There was a lot of waste. There was looting of state properties. One minister was caught with huge sums, millions of dollars in her personage, in her private circumstances and all that. And we've seen the juggling of our judicial system. We've seen a certain political arrogance. And so that is the situation. And this was what it is believed pertained in June of 1970, before June 1979, the military in power, the senior military officers in power. So the December 7th, 2024 is an echo, and it looks as if it's another start, renewal for the Ghanaian people.
Thanks a lot for the historical background. And even within that historical background, there are so much we will have to analyze, question, and maybe inquire why this and why that. But there is this, you have already mentioned some of the violations of the president, outgoing president Akufo-Addo, even contrary to his own pronouncements. He ended up even worse than people he was accusing. But the main question is, there is this analogy. The party formed by Flight Lieutenant General John Rawlings, who became the leader of everything that anti-corruption stood for: house cleaning, bringing sanity to our economy, making sure that public officials do not become so corrupt, and wastefulness in the use of public funds and all that. That is the National Democratic Congress. At the time that Flight Lieutenant Rawlings came onto the scene, he championed all that I have mentioned. And then he actually lived that. And his reign for about 10 years, from 1982 to 1992, prior to becoming a civilian president, was one that can be said to be almost corruption-free. You have very minimal levels of corruption because he stood for it. He led that life. And so people entrusted the authority to rule the country unto him again. We kept on moving. But with the coming of these all manner of laws, civil rules, you can't do this according to the Constitution, this and that and that. From 1992 to 2024, we have seen a rise in the levels of corruption, levels of abuse of public office, levels of using state authority to steal things that belong to the state. A thing that was very critical in the early days of the 1970s to 1980. We have seen a rise to levels that we didn't see before, worse than the 1971, 79 era. Why is it that after the house cleansing, after the reign of the Rawlings, after transiting to civilian rule, we have things rather going worse instead of maintaining some sanity and improving the situation?
Well, the onset of constitutional rule gave license for certain freedoms freedom of assembly, freedom of association, freedom of speech, and also negated some of the rigid laws that could be punitive for people who broke the law, because the constitutional rule was totally about the rule of law. That means that referred to the courts and the judicial system for legal redress. And you could play there. It gave you room to maneuver. All right. So in 1992, when Jerry Rawlings came as the first president of the Fourth Republic, he championed what he believed in and lived that way, and was very strict with his followers. Though it was a constitutional democracy at the time, people were aware of the personal preferences of Jerry Rawlings in managing the country. And so, as a strong man from 1981 to 1982, people still had it in their minds that they had to toe the line. In 2000, when the NDC lost power, there was a turnaround because John Ajegu Baffour belonged to the property-owning democracy. And so, therefore, his emphasis was on private participation in the economy to a certain sense that they went overboard. All right. And so he pushed that policy initiative, and then it got worse, because then we were creating a political class because we had over 200 MPs, and they had to be serviced by the country in order for them to determine the management of the country. But the controls were not there. And so the political class grew in leaps and bounds in terms of not only the politicians, non-MP ministers, special assistants, advisors to the president, ambassadors, because we had the political parties. So the political party executives and leadership became the movers and shakers to determine where the resources would go. In most cases, some percentage or a large percentage went into their pockets. Jerry Rawlings, when he left power, cautioned us that we should not follow, the NDC should not follow the NPP, their way of governing, because we had principles to hold. But along the line, we fell short and we lost our way a bit. And that's why we lost the election in 2012, in 2016. And in 2017, the NPP came into power. And they came into power on the back of many allegations of corrupt practices by the NDC government at the time. We had problems with power. There were power outages, which they called Dulso. We had problems with the economy. The common economy overheated a bit. And then we had some form of mismanagement of our resources. But when the NPP came in, on the back of that, the hopes and aspirations of Ghanaians were raised because they had somebody who claimed to be a champion of civil rights. That was Nana Akufo-Addo, who was a lawyer who had championed certain civil rights initiatives and programs. And so they thought that they would have someone who, as he said, would protect the public purse, would make sure that this would not be a party of family and friends, and all that. And he went against his own words. His time in office was a time where he enriched his family people of his extended family and people from his hometowns and backgrounds. And we saw a situation where if you didn't belong to a certain clique of people, there was no chance for you to progress. They interfered in economic advancement and progression. If you wanted to invest in the country, you had to go through certain moves in order to get what you want. They claimed that they would have one district, one factory. It didn't happen. They claimed that they'd give $1 million per district. It didn't happen. Then they said Agenda 111, which was to put 111 hospitals in various districts of the country. It didn't happen. And so it was all about promises and failing to a very, 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 very extreme effect. That Ghanaians then they started to look in shock that the person they had put so much trust in had failed. So the political arrogance of the MPP was that there was no way they could lose. And there was also allegations of their ability to rig elections because they had packed the judiciary with their own people. They had packed the various civic institutions, the arbiters of our democracy, with their own people, and the evidence is there. And so they thought that through those means they would hang on to power. But the people then said no. And that is what, on the 7th of December, Ghanaians showed the new Patriotic Party. They lost abysmally. Right now they are running around trying to regroup. But they'll have to wait for 4 years. And so the onus is on the NDC, led by President Mahama, who has had 4 years of experience, has made mistakes, and therefore can correct his mistakes and move ahead in a way because he now knows what the Ghanaian people want and what the Ghanaian people can do. President John Evans Atta Mills inherited a country that was very, very tense. And in the sub-region, the West African sub-region, there were so many civil disturbances in the neighboring countries. And so he realized that he didn't want to alienate the people of Ghana. So he had to go softly, softly, if he was going to prosecute those, if there was evidence. But he put into place the right kind of initiatives that would find out the evidence and then also prosecute. It was this time that there was the expose on the judges, the expose of customs, and within his own, there was a cleansing within his own own party, the NDC. And he also wanted to put an end to the vicious cycle of hatred when parties took over from each other. He was a very honest man, and nobody could associate him with any form of corruption. They believed that he was soft on the previous government. But I think that he was a softly approach that was hindered by the fact that he died early, because he was working on making sure that those kind of corrupt practices wouldn't happen. That is my defense of him, because I was very much working in that time. I was a member of parliament, and I was in the workings of the government. What happened was that we had a problem after 2012. The changeover from Atta Mills to John Mahama. John Mahama wanted his own team around him. I must admit that there was a little bit of inexperience. And so, therefore, some of the policies of Atta Mills were not followed to the letter. and it gave vent to what we saw. Because the emphasis was on shoring up the economy. When Atta Mills inherited the presidency, just like John Mahama has inherited the presidency from Akufo-Addo, the country's economy was in a terrible state. And they had to work very, very hard to redeem the country. I have it on authority that the IMF had no hope in the Ghana economy on January 7th, 2009. They really thought it wouldn't work. So Atta Mills brought in Dr. Commrade, who was a banker, international banker of repute, and with his team, they were able to restore the Ghanaian economy to a workable situation or workable standard. They tried to restrict borrowing, and they tried to control the economy so that it wouldn't overheat. But it seemed as if John Mahama was in a hurry to build the infrastructural base in Ghana. And in that hurry, I think some of the controls went awry. So that is what led to the belief system that he was corrupt and corruption had come into play. So when Nana Akufo-Addo took over, he saw that there was a leeway in following infrastructural development. And so he embarked on a lot of infrastructural programs. But because of the corrupt practices in his government, they spent the quantum before they could even finish the work. That is why we've got so many uncompleted projects all over the country. Another thing that he did was that he did not continue with the infrastructural development programs of John Mahama. One example is the Saglemi housing project, which was to build affordable houses, 1,400 units of affordable houses for the average man. They came into power in 2017 with that project almost finished. And they said there were corrupt practices involved in the execution of that project. So they did not want anybody to move in. They did not complete it, though it was 95% finished. They left it, and the whole thing became derelict, which in itself I regarded as a crime. And that was the kind of system they put in place. So when we're talking about Atta Mills, I'm saying that he realized that he needed a softly approach. He could not come with the hammer. He didn't have the personality of Jerry John Rawlings, who was more gung-ho, who was more aggressive in his approach in pushing those policies. Atta Mills was a more laid-back, very quiet, but very, 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 very thoughtful person. And the two complemented themselves until the sad situation where he died. John Mahama, I would say the first term was about youthful exuberance, and so therefore certain controls were not looked at very carefully. But he's gone through the mill, he's lost an election, he sat down for 8 years, he's won election again, and I know that he will deliver.
Yes, but it can be said that crime is crime no matter who commits it. And actually, Professor Mills said he will go ahead and prosecute no matter whose horse is gone. He said it.
He did say it.
So
but
why is it that,
I am saying that.
Why is it that when Perenial Hall, he stated right himself, they had the documented criminal cases of first 100 people. If crime is crime, why don't you guys push it to the law courts?
I must admit that you're saying that they had a dossier.
Yes, they.
But the thing is that don't forget that Jonathan Mills was a lawyer. all right, and he had that dossier looked at. And I'm sure, and I'm telling you, that in some cases, he realized that some would not hold up in court. But that is something that we'll discuss, because Kwamna Ahoy was a member of his government.
Yes.
And a very key member of his government. So why did he hold back?
No,
Because they were not sure.
He said, he gave an interview. You see, because
But that was
people,
after the effect.
Yes, and that is why people were saying, why didn't you speak out then? So that people, but maybe he didn't want to, because of his, they themselves were the more or less backbone of Professor Mo's campaign and government. And so he didn't want to
Rock the boat.
Yes,
And I'm
but
saying,
he actually stated,
we went in disarray in 2012 because we all of a sudden had to change direction. And that was when Jerry John Rawlings started what we call his boom speeches, because he believed that we should have been a little bit more aggressive in our approach to ensure that what had happened in terms of his policy of poverty accountability, anti-corruption and social justice should come into the play. So I would not blame John Evans Atta Mills too much. I believe that we have learned our lesson. We've seen the worst occasions of corruption, which people themselves have come to understand. And so I'd say that I have hope that it's going to be different this time.
you have hope, but if there were some deterrents, strong deterrents, Akufo-Addo's government would not have come to loot the way they did. Because the precedence has been set that you can steal and loot, and when the NDC people come, they won't do anything. They can't do anything. That precedence has been set.
You think that I don't think that precedent.
Oh, yes, because we saw it. Because we knew of so many cases when NDC 1 came in 2009, go ahead and prosecute them.
But we had other incredible concerns at the time, and that concern was the economy. And even right now, I'm telling you the truth. Sometimes I told you that the man had a softly approach because he had certain priorities, and he prioritized the economy before actually going after these people. And I'm sure that if he had prevailed in life, he would have done it, because I had personal interactions with him where he complained bitterly about the things that were being done, putting into place the right kind of initiatives to arrest the situation.
So that will give the impression that justice will have to be suspended in order to deal with economic problems.
Sometimes it happens.
Well, maybe so in the future we'll have to have a look at that. But I don't think at some sections of the economy will have to be suspended for one area.
From what you're saying, it could have been a mistake. I'm not making a judgment, but I'm saying...
Yes, it was a mistake.
Yes.
An open mistake. That is why the main issue of our discussion now is, why is it that the corruption and the misdeeds that the revolution sought to cleanse in 2024, after the reign of NDC and NPP, it is rather worse. And what you can put the finger on is that there is no deterrent. At the time of the Rawlings, there was a deterrent. Even his arch enemies, let me say the best of Kofi Kumsi, in the time of before, when the corruption allegations and the outcries came to a head, Mr. Kofi Kumsi openly declared that at the time of Rawlings, there was a deterrent in Rawlings when it comes to corruption. But in Akufo, there was no deterrent.
I did say that. And I did say that when we inherited government in 2008, the tensions in this country were so high, and the country was totally polarized. You remember the calling of Atta Mills a poodle and all that kind of thing. All those things came to the fore. And I think he was very sensitive to it, that he didn't want a situation where the society would implode as a result of a crusade to arrest certain people, because it wouldn't have been even seen as an anti-corruption measure, but rather as punishment, as a tool of trying to suppress your enemies.
Right.
So, as I said, the jury is open in this discussion, because this also needs some form of verification in terms of access to the information that would actually put the onus on Atta Mills.
Yeah, no, well, we have to have a look at this because the NDC is back again in power. And we are going to administer this country again. Now, if justice, they say the wheels of justice grind slowly. But in many cases, like in the case of NDC 2009 to 2016, the justice that was delayed, as we are being told, was actually justice denied. And that became a thing of cancellation or nullification of deterrence against corruption.
I don't think.
Yes, because that was what, openly, that is what made Akufo-Addo's regime ruthlessly steal, loot, and openly abuse, misuse.
Now, when we talk about deterrence too, we've got to be very, very careful that it is not about personalities, but about the systems and institutions we put into place.
Yeah.
We had Yoko, we have the police, we have different institutions that are there to monitor and oversee acts of government accountability. We have the parliamentary, the PAC, Public Accounts Committee. It has unearthed a lot of acts of corruption without any sense of redress from our judiciary, because we also have to blame if you say the rule of law, you have to blame the judiciary. We have SRAJ. People have gone to SRAJ. How is it? It's just that I believe that somebody like Nanado used his wiles to circumvent those institutions and make them actually toothless.
Now we have to focus on the future now.
That's right.
We are back in government. The mess during President Akufo-Addo's reign is much, much worse than before. And actually we can see from the debts, and then when the account is rendered about even things that they are championing, you can see that the rot and the stealing is just colossal. So what is the right way to approach it in the presidency of John Dramani Mahama?
I believe that we should strengthen our institutions.
So
Yoko has got to be strengthened. We've got to strengthen the prosecutorial powers of the various institutions that are responsible for countering corruption and malpractices. We've got to look at Parliament and how Parliament has oversight over the country's resources, because you have to go to Parliament before you embark on certain financial transactions. All those things have got to come back to the fore. And it's got to do with the kind of appointees John Mahama would have, and the will that he has for those things to be done and executed.
We already have, as one of the maxims of NDC, from the NDC time, probity, accountability, which was
and social justice,
transparency,
yeah.
And social justice. But the social justice aspect, well, maybe it's general. But when you talk of transparency, probity, and accountability, now we have the situation. We've had situations in this country before when allegations have been made about people in office, and let's say even in the arts just ended administration of President Akufo. Even the Attorney General, or was it Attorney Accountant General, has given a report. So much is going wrong, so much money is going missing. And even that office was rather attacked, and the president just wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah, the Auditor General. Yes.
And then he himself appointed another person to check freedom fighter Martin Hamidou. And then the Martin Hamidou ended up accusing him of being mother servant.
Of corruption.
Is it because presidents expect people they appoint into office to be people they can manipulate? And that is what is happening.
Well, that, you see, again, the argument, it's deeper than that. We have to look at the people of Ghana themselves, their expectations. We've got to look at our constitution and how effective it is in trying to prevent the mismanagement of our resources. We have a situation where we've politicized almost all our institutions that should not have been politicized. You know what I mean? For example, we talk about the EC. We have people who were members of a particular political party who are now arbiters of our electoral programs. So therefore, we are seeing partisanship. We have partisanship in almost every aspect of governance, because what NADO did to circumvent the system was to put its own people there. And now we're going to have a situation where we'll see what the appointing authority, which the president of Ghana will do. 6,000 appointees by the president? How do you do that? And the expectations of the party leadership are that most members of the party leadership who have been loyal to the presidency, all right, to the new president, expect that they'll be put somewhere. How does our constitution react to it? And how do the people of Ghana react to it? That's the depth.
Yes, but all is you see, the codes of conduct of every office.
We have codes of conduct. I was a member of parliament.
Yes.
I was a minister. So I had to go and declare my assets. I thought it was the most useless initiative because, yes, my assets. When I came into office, and then I gave it to the Registrar General, and if someone wanted to find out what my assets were, we had to go through certain you had to go through certain maneuvers to get to find out about me. But it wasn't about what I had come into politics with. It should have been about what I am leaving when I leave office. What did I come with, and do the comparisons? You understand? So I think that what we've got to do is to hone our systems of investigation and interrogation, and also the prosecutorial powers that we should give to the institutions who are responsible for that kind of thing. Because in 1979, in 1981, there was a CVC, the Citizens Vetting Committee, which a lot of people thought was unconstitutional, was against the civil rights of Ghanaians and all that. All those things have got to come into being. That is what we've got to look at, that we have the systems, and how do we turn them to be more effective and efficient than they are now? Because those institutions are there.
Yeah, so
are we using them effectively?
So what are some of the ways that we have to do this? Is an old issue, because
we've got to depoliticize.
The whole president of America came all the way here, said that we need strong institutions.
Now,
so
we have the same situation in America. Look at Trump, what he's been through and how he's circumvented it and everything, and now he's politicizing the situation. We have to put systems into place that can override political decisions that are being made. That is what we have to do. I mean, very recently, Trump They said they were still going to prosecute him. They're still going to convict him. Could it happen here? And we have institutions that can mirror the institutions of the United States. So it's political will too, and the will of the people.
Yes, so what? Now let's speak. Maybe I would like you to use the music platform to speak directly to our new president, because these are issues that have been repeated over and over. And the anger with which the Ghanaians throughout the NPP government is not an anger that can be suppressed or compressed anymore. If we try to compress it, it could rather explode in our face. They're exploding in the faces of the wrong people when the guilty will go scot-free. So how would you advise him forthrightly, with fortitude, face these challenges, areas he should strengthen, and the way he should go about it with the language?
I think we're a little fortunate that he's been in power before. And I think that there's a certain sense of very good intentions by John Mahama. He's realized a lot of the mistakes he made. In actual fact, when he lost the election in 2016, there was an investigative committee that went into the reasons why he lost the elections. Naturally, it didn't come into the public purview, but he was aware of the findings of the commission. The committee, and I think he learned his lessons, because I don't think personally it was about him being corrupt, but about the political will he had to use to turn the country around. And I think that this time he has seen the worst exposition of misgovernance that we've ever had, and I'm not sure he wants to be associated with that, and that he's going to move forward and away from that for the betterment of the Ghanaian people.
Yeah, so if you could be more specific about
institutional
reforms.
Yes, I believe in institutional reforms. Look, when John Baffour was in power, the World Bank gave money for institutional renewal, where most of our institutions were being looked at, audited, and to change the way they approach. And I think that we've got to do that again, because there are a lot of our institutions that are almost moribund because of the political activity that have been. Look at Cocoa Board. For the first time in the history of Ghana, it's made a loss. It's having problems of getting accessing loans. Look at the Bank of Ghana. Look at all these very solid institutions which were almost sacred. VRA and the rest. ECG and the rest, they all have problems because of the wanton politicization of all those institutions, where they were not putting technical expertise and people who had the know-how to run those organizations. And that is what the Ghanaian people expect, that John Mahama will ensure that all our institutions that contribute to Ghana's socio-economic development will work efficiently and will be depoliticized to the advantage of the efficiency of the system and the benefit of the people of Ghana.
Yeah, what about punitive measures? Because obviously people have
when we talk about punitive measures, it's yes, if organizations and institutions are efficient, and if the prosecutorial investigative institutions are also efficient, then we'll have the prosecutions. We have to look at the judiciary, we have to look at our police force, we have to look at the way we look at things, we have to look at the way we can prevent the prevention of corrupt practices. We have to do so many things to turn this country around. And it's got to do with a certain honesty and a certain political will to effect change. And if anybody breaches the system, that person should be jailed, or that person should feel, as we say, the full rigors of law. So it may not be only being jailed. There are fines and there are ways of doing it. And I think that, it's early days yet. So let's look.
Yes. I believe You have mentioned one thing that I've always, because the people are tired, that's why they rejected the people government so forcefully. If you take action and jail people, then you will be speaking to everybody that stealing is wrong, that stealing cannot be.
Stealing has always been wrong, especially
Yes.
stealing from government, where when you steal from government, you are affecting the very people you live with or you work with or who are even your brothers and sisters. And that was what Jerry Rawlings believed in. I worked with him for 19 years and I know. So, and I know what he did, and he did it by example. And he did it in a way that today everybody now respects him for the commitment he had to this country. I think that Jonathan Mills also played a great role in bringing a certain amount of stability and giving an example of how to work, because he didn't politicize the institutions as Nanado did. And I believe that we tend to try and put religion in. By the grace of God, John Mahama has now been given an opportunity to see the way clear to making Ghana a better country.
Yes, the message is loud and clear. So, can you give NDC people assurance that...
I can't give. I'm not a... I'm a member of the NDC. I'm an activist of the party. I will do my best to give advice and everything, but I don't have that kind of push. I can meet with like-minded people like the United Cadres Front. I can meet with cadres and activists, and we can sit down and talk, and sometimes talk to the wind. And I'm sure the message will get the president and his people.
And thank you very much for speaking with the wind, and the message will surely get to the presidency and all who matter, because this program will be streamed online on YouTube and Facebook, and possibly
after editing.
Oh yes, and possibly on other mainland media too, because we intend to send our messages loud and clear, and we have to stand as vanguards for our own government to succeed.
Yes, and that's
not repeat mistakes that have been made.
Yes.
That did make people so disappointed, and they just lost the zeal to fight for NDC. People, remarkably, maybe I have not asked you again the last question. Maybe if you can slot it in.
Right.
You see, at the wake of at the point in time, the zeal of NDC people to fight for their party to win sank and went down so low. But we saw how the united front of branches, all factors being brought into being. We saw the force with which NDC fought.
I was very much part and parcel of cadre and activist activity during the years of John Mahama, and I remember being one of the keynote speakers during the 31st December celebrations with John Rawlings, Jerry John Rawlings present. And I did say that we had lost our way a bit. And I say a bit, we lost our way. And therefore we had to come back to the original ideals of what we stood for, first as the PNDC and also as the NDC. So I am saying that you're right. But when you use the words jail, when we talk about the rigors of the law, it's not only about jail. It could be about fining, it could be about penalties and things like that, which would suit the crime and give people the hope and give people the example that corruption in Ghana will not be accepted.
Yes, we thank you for that recommendation, and we shall keep it up and stay alert as vanguards for our own party to succeed.
Yes.
And so every quarter we shall take stock, and then we shall be back very soon for you to give us the appraisal so far.
The review. Okay.
So thank you very much, people. This has been a Commrade Cadre, Honorable Fritz Baffour on the United Cadres Front, and we shall be back to talk to him again and possibly with other Commrade cadres, those who have seen it all from the beginning, and then we shall learn more from it. Preferably, get more wisdom, because in our local parlance, the grey hair with the people of wisdom, they are mightier than the kings and princes and those who carry the sword. So we shall soon be back. Thank again, Comrade Keda and Honorable Fritz Baffour. We shall be back soon.
Committing themselves to civil rights, the new government.
The battle has ended.
Good morning.
1969.
This Mary Charter is not only a guide to those who lead our nation in government.
On notice, Lieutenant General Choro Ekofo.
Public in an attempt to make scapegoats of all these men.
For the first time in Ghana, a group of junior army officers had attempted to
Country. After 3 months, they handed over to a civilian government under Hila Liman.
I will set the appropriate examples myself.
From B. Parliament dissolved. C.
Error has come into being in this country. Supposed to be 24.
Of the free maternity care for our women.
Late President was in numerous occasions with Jack.